Have you ever been told something about a project and thought, I don't actually know what that means?
I'm Brendan. I'm an engineer and I see this every day.
And I'm Jo, and I work in the industry, but I ask the questions people are often too afraid to ask. This podcast is about slowing things down and translating advice into what it really means. Welcome to So, What Does That Mean? Today's episode is about why everyone feels lost before they build. Have you ever been in a meeting, opened an email, or opened a report with diagrams and had this internal reaction of, I have absolutely no idea what any of this means? Everyone's nodding and you're thinking, I hope no one asked me a question about this.
Yeah, exactly. And how are you expected to know what you're looking at? You're not in the industry. You don't do this every day. You're not trained to read and interpret these technical documents.
So you're saying that lost feeling is completely normal?
100%. If you're feeling lost, when you're feeling overwhelmed with your technical documentation, it's not you. It's generally the way it's been delivered to you.
Okay, so it's completely normal.
Yes.
Oh, phew. So why do you think people feel so lost?
I think the construction development industry has quite a fragmented system. The system is confusing. People get advice to invest or to get involved with projects within the industry, but the industry is confusing for everybody within it. So how would anybody who is not generally within the industry day to day actually expect to understand what's happening?
Can you expand on that a little bit in relation to why is it confusing within the industry?
Yeah, well, there's several levels of complexities throughout the industry. There's individual disciplines that have all got to come together to produce a result for you. There are several layers of red tape. All of that red tape's got to align to somewhere near where your project is heading and get the result that you need.
Okay, that makes a bit more sense. So yeah, okay, so the process is confusing for both sides of the party.
Yeah, and I think advice, when you're seeking advice and you're in the unknown, you seek advice from other people and you get advice from specialists. In our industries, there are multiple specialists. There are engineers, surveyors, architects, builders, contractors.
Yeah.
Who do you take advice from?
Yeah.
They're all going to speak their own language, and generally you're going to be confused by most of it.
Okay, so what should we be looking for? Like someone who aligns with our project goals, or like how do we know what the advice that we're getting is going to help us with the confusion?
Yeah, I think the advice that you're getting, if you don't understand it, you should be asking questions.
Okay.
The questions that you ask are not going to be stupid questions because you're trying to understand technical jargon and technical information that's been presented to you poorly. Technical specialists need to be able to communicate that to you in a way that you can understand.
So is there one discipline within this process that would be tasked with translating this the whole picture, or is it sort of trying to piece together each piece of advice that you receive?
Yeah, I mean, in theory, project managers or project advisors should be the ones that are giving you this advice, and they're looking at the whole picture for you. But ultimately, it comes down to what is the scope of works that you've given them, and what's their objectives? Is their objectives to manage the construction element? So anything that becomes a problem, they're likely just going to present it to you to offload it to one of the other disciplines.
Right.
You want to have someone who is as closely aligned to your overall objectives as possible, or get some sort of an advisor that's completely independent to the entire process, not involved anywhere else, and can provide you objective advice.
Okay. And is it normal that there's not one person that does this?
Yeah. I mean, even project managers and advisors, they specialize in a different area.
Yeah.
You've got design managers, you've got construction managers, you've got trades that offer their own project management services. Architects offer their own project management services. If you're getting an architect to project manage a build, you can expect some complexities to occur there.
Okay. So it's sort of, I can feel just from this conversation how confusing it is just to say, well, where do I start? Who do I go to first? How do I start this process? Because there's not sort of one person that can sort of guide you through the whole thing.
Yeah, and you're seeking advice early on from people who are generally not going to be involved later on down the track.
True.
So it might be, a investment person. It could be bank, could be an arm of creditor. Might be providing you some advice. You might go to council early on and ask them about the process. They'll point you to a town planner. The town planner will point you to specialists. The specialists will come back. You'll go through the application process and hang on, that's not what I wanted. Go back to your town planner. Town planner will go, no, actually, you now need an engineer or you need a contractor. So you're sort of too far in the process to do anything about it. Before you know it, you're there having to deal with all of the problems that come with it. I think the system assumes understanding, but it rarely actually checks for that.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us a little bit about you and your story.
Well, I'm an engineer. I've got roughly about 18 years experience in the industry, and that experience has been from the design side, the planning side, the construction side, maintenance side, within stakeholders, outside of stakeholders, within government, within local government. So I've had experience seeing projects go well, seeing projects seeing projects fail, seeing issues that are within projects that uh, come back to bite you in the bum later on. And you tend to learn from those sort of things. What's interesting is over the 18 years and in all the different areas that you work in, you actually just see the same questions, same assumptions, and same outcomes.
It sort of doesn't matter what side you've been on. It's you've seen the similar issues, and I suppose that leads to your knowledge base being so good on these issues.
Well, once you've experienced it for yourself, you tend to intervene when you've realised similar patterns to previously.
And that allows you to catch things earlier for your clients, or advise them that, hey, this is probably going to be a problem, and give them some options.
Yeah, and I mean, predominantly I work in the planning and design space and sort of advisory area at the moment, and that means I utilise a lot of my construction maintenance, and defect repair experience early on, and it allows me to have that foresight when we're going through the project to be able to advise individuals correctly.
Okay. Well, I'm not an engineer. So this podcast is mainly about me extracting this information from Brendan and asking the questions that you guys probably have or have thought about asking, but have been too afraid to ask. Because what we've found a lot with clients is that they don't want to assume, like they don't know what's happening, that they don't understand what you're saying. So I'm here to ask the simple, silly questions. So if it doesn't make sense to me, it's probably not going to make sense to most other people.
Yeah, and it's important to realise too, confusion doesn't stop projects; it delays clarity. People move forward anyway. If there's some confusion that's been found, they sort of bury it under the rug or stick their head in the sand and keep moving. They say, well, we'll just deal with that later.
And that later can often result in something being costly, I suppose. Is that why people get shocked later too? Because they haven't clarified that confusion, or they've just assumed that their engineer or builder or whatever was going to explain it to them?
Yeah, and some issues don't like there's not really much evidence shown of issues if you're not looking for it early on. So, I mean, for example, cracking in block work, block work, concrete cracks, that's what it does to be able to resist the loads that are within it. It starts off as a crack that you can't actually see the crack. You see so the crack is actually within the concrete itself,
Mm-hmm.
and then it makes its way to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
It can be like point 1 or 0.01 of a mil wide.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is over time it moves slowly, and it's generally unnoticeable unless you are actually looking for that.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is, 6 months later down the track, if that's now 5 millimeters wide,
That's a problem.
that's an issue.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of the time, people are sort of going, "Well, it's only a 5 mil wide crack, so why do I need to do something about it?" And the Australian standards don't really suggest intervening with any sort of cracking within residential structures in concrete unless it's larger than 15 millimeters wide. If I had a 15 millimeter wide crack in my wall, I'd do something about it long before it was 15
Yeah.
millimeters wide. To me, that's quite large, but um, I would be more concerned about how did it get from 0 to 15, or how did I get from 0 to 5? What time did that take?
Right. So you're saying you poured a new slab 6 months ago and now we've got a 5 mil crack after 6 months. That's something to have someone come and look at.
Something to have a look at because, while the 5 mil itself may not be a concern, but the 0 to 5 mil in 6 months, that's a concern.
Right.
You shouldn't be seeing 5 mil cracks until your building's at least 10 to 15 years old.
Right. Okay.
If at all.
Yeah. Okay. So why do you think people feel like these issues come out of nowhere?
Well, because they don't know about them.
Right.
They're coming to professionals for advice. Professionals glaze over minor things because they're there for a given point in time. They're not there 4 or 5 different times.
Mm-hmm.
They're there once. They provide advice back to you and they say, go and have a look at it again in 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
and see if it's got any worse. I mean, how many people actually go and do that?
Yeah.
I
True.
don't know. Unless you're an asset owner or building manager or something like that who is tightly monitoring, a budget and a maintenance plan,
Mm-hmm.
you're genuinely not going to go and do that. I mean, how many times have we seen people who have put an insurance claim in after a storm event or a particular event, and the insurance company firstly comes back and says, "Show me the photos of what it looked like just before the event happened."
Yes.
I don't know anyone who's going out and taken 200 photos of their
The
house
house.
just
Yeah.
before a storm's coming.
Yeah.
But that's the expectation.
Yeah. Can be tricky. And do you think that's why it sort of feels like it comes out of nowhere?
Yeah, I mean the problems are rarely sudden. They're just deferred. If you look at it and you say, well, that's only a couple of mils wide in terms of the cracking. Yes, that's fine, but you should get it investigated or get it find out why it is cracking, not just that there's a crack. And I think if you're investigating to that, if you get into it early enough, the advice might be, look, sometime in the next 5 years, monitor it. If things get worse, do this. If it doesn't get worse, patch it up. Away you go.
Okay. And I suppose, the key takeaway is most surprises are there early. They probably just haven't been explained in a way that the client understands.
Yeah, look, all of the issues that we see, particularly the ones that are, catastrophic, there's been early onset signs for years that things were going to occur. It's just nobody's done anything about it. And if I use the example of pipe work, nobody sees pipe work.
No.
So unless you went to your toilet and flushed it and it didn't flush, how would you know that there was a problem with your pipe? Or say you got a little sinkhole or something in your backyard. I mean, that's a bit extravagant. But say you got a little depression in your backyard. And, you looked at it and, well, what's that? Like you can look at it and go, okay, there's just a little bit of a depression in my backyard. It's all good. We'll just keep going. It doesn't stop us living our life. But why is that there? Is there a pipe there that's leaked? Is there some sort of void in the ground in the backyard? What is happening, and is that going to cause a bigger issue?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think our goal for this podcast is for us to be able to translate that advice into practical knowledge for our listeners. We're going to focus on costs, risks, and time associated with particular elements or areas of our industry and of projects based on our experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to explain what to do next, not just what something is.
And I suppose we'll, slow things down. Slow things down so you have the time to ask the awkward questions. If you're confused, that's the right moment to stop, I suppose, when you're going through any stage of building or design phase. Like if you don't understand, let's push the pause button and get some understanding. So that wraps up our first episode of So What Does That Mean? Thank you for joining us. Our next episode, we'll be talking about the advice trap and why it catches so many smart people. If something you've heard today has made you pause, that's usually the moment worth slowing down. This podcast isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking better questions. We release new episodes every week. So follow us on So What Does That Mean on Spotify, and subscribe wherever you listen. And follow us on social media for clips, insights, and behind-the-scenes conversation. We appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next time.